All right, Chris, since the Chiefs lost to the Bills, that means it's a lock. Chiefs are winning this weekend, right? Can we just go ahead and just put that out there? Can we just go and put that out there?
You want to start with the negativity? I thought we were going to start with, hey, the Panthers didn't lose this past Sunday.
Hey, 3 straight weeks of no losses, baby. Let's go.
3 straight weeks, baby.
Let's go.
go.
Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Ready? Let's huddle up.
Let's just do it, okay?
For Panthers Playbook, driven by Carolina Ford dealers. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. We're having a conversation about Bryce Young, and it's not just Bryce Young, the fact that he's starting this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs, but does Dave Canales actually believe in Bryce Young long term? We're going to get into that discussion. Before we knock into that, make sure you check out our sponsor at Panthers Playbook, Carolina Ford dealers. With the Ford F-150 on your team, easy for me to say, it's game on. See your Carolina Ford dealer today. Chris, Bryce Young starting this Sunday doesn't shock me at all. I'm not surprised by the announcement of Dave Canales. But when he was asked, is this still a week-to-week evaluation when it comes to your quarterback? And he said, yes, it's still going to be a week-to-week thing going forward. I was like, man, like Dave Canales, to me, it just reaffirmed the doubt in my mind, the doubt that Dave Canales has in terms of Bryce Young as a long-term answer at quarterback. That's what it told me. Because Dave Canales easily could say, hey, look, last 7 weeks of the year, we're going to ride it out with Bryce. We're just going to leave it at that. But the fact that it's still a week-to-week thing, it just gives me pause in terms of what Canales thinks about Bryce long-term. I might be wrong on that, but that's the feeling I get, Chris.
I don't get the feeling that it's necessarily that, right?
Okay.
I kind of take this a little bit differently.
All right.
The way I kind of thought about it was this. You remember like long time ago when Dan Morgan was talking about, hey, sometimes some of the best players that you can find are the ones that weren't always, the top pick, then go to the top school. They're not always, the top recruit, 5 stars, all this other stuff. They've been looked over a little bit, and that brings out the dog in them. And that's what we want in our dogs that we're going to get. And somebody who kind of fits that bill, Chuba Hubbard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just got paid. So we see
did.
what Dan Morgan likes. So part of me, when this came out on Monday, thinking about this with Dave Canales, I was thinking, this might be a little manipulative, but what if the Panthers are just trying to see what they can bring out of Bryce Young? We're not going to guarantee you anything right now because everything's been guaranteed to you. You went to Mater Dei High School. Everything was guaranteed to you there, right? You went to Alabama. You knew you were next up after Mac Brown. I'm sorry, not Mac Brown. Somebody might be next up after Mac Brown.
There's that.
Mac
That's a
Jones.
different conversation.
That's a different conversation, different podcast. Mac Jones, excuse me. And you knew you were going to be the guy. And so many people, you won the Heisman Trophy, and so many people kept saying that you are a lock to be a number 1 overall pick after your junior year of college. He ended up doing that, and he's with the Carolina Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, there's no job to win with Andy Dalton, right? We're going to bring in Andy Dalton, but Andy Dalton is immediately your backup. This is your thing now. He's been handed everything so far. This isn't a good or bad thing. I'm not putting Bryce down on anything. But at this point, Bryce, we want you to go take it now. And for you to go take it, that doesn't mean that we just hand it to you and say you're going to start for the rest of the season. You had some confidence issues. You had some issues where you kind of, felt like you weren't really in the game, like you weren't really trusting your eyes, weren't trusting your throws, your processing speed, your reads, all that type of stuff. You weren't trusting all that. Now you look a little bit better. But also in those games, let's keep in mind, the Panthers gained less and had less time of possession than both of those other teams. Those other teams more so lost those games than the Carolina Panthers won those games. So, Bryce, go prove it to us.
Okay.
Because I'm not the head coach that drafted you. Mm-hmm. That GM's not the head coach that GM's not the GM that drafted you.
Yeah.
Right? Dave Tepper so far has allowed us to run things with his hands off, as it looks like it is. So like that. Publicly, it seems like that. So if I don't think you can get the job done in my system, I'm not going to keep you around if that's going to make me look bad. I'm trying to keep a job.
Yeah.
So Bryce, go prove it.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that, right? Because I think that could also bring out the best in Bryce Young. And I want Bryce Young to succeed, and I think that could bring out the best.
It might, but that kind of leads into what I'm thinking is that the faith isn't like set. Like, hey, you know what? We had to sit him down for a little bit, but we know this can be our guy going forward. Let's just run with it. And like that kind of leads into what I was saying is that Dave Canales isn't fully bought in. I also wonder as well, go back to week 2. You and I were in the press conference after the game, the loss to the Chargers, where Bryce didn't complete a pass that traveled more than like 10 yards downfield, with the exception of the interception that he threw. But Dave Canales was asked post-game, hey, Bryce still your quarterback? And he said, definitively, Bryce is our quarterback. Bryce is our starting quarterback. You and I were both in there, and it's like, okay, Bryce is the starting quarterback. Next day rolls around, hey, guys, actually, it's Andy Dalton. I'm wondering if Dave Canales is going to be like, I ain't going to tell y'all going forward in terms of who the starting quarterback is going to be. I wonder if he's like, I kind of got some crap from that. Understandably so. It's like, wait, yesterday you said this, but then now today you're saying this other thing. Either way, I'm still of the belief that Dave isn't bought in on Bryce long term. To me, it's not. But also, at what point, to your point, Chris, about, all right, this is a week-to-week thing, how long can that really last? Like, you're going to do that next year? Like, week-to-week thing? At some point, you're going to have to make a commitment, either to Bryce or another direction.
I'm gonna tell you how long you can do it. You can do it for how many ever games you have left in the regular season, which is what, 7?
7.
You know, so we got 6 more weeks of decisions to make after this, right? And then there's a long off season, and you got a nice runway from January to April to where you can make decisions, make some moves, and all that. Really, January to March. More than likely in March, the Panthers will know what their direction is.
Yeah.
But this is the prove it time, and I wouldn't say like necessarily lack of faith. It also could be, you know, we see that this guy is talented, but he may not be the right guy for the system that I want to run.
Yeah.
And that happens in the NFL and the NBA and the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there are certain players that, you know, in college, there are certain players that just, no matter how good they are, they just do not fit what that coach is trying to do. It's just trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and it's just not going to happen, right? Maybe the Panthers know that he's talented, and maybe it's an outlook of, okay, we'll make these decisions week to week. We're not going to put somebody out there that we feel like is going to lose us the game, because at this point we're still trying to make sure we're winning games. We're not tanking by any means, but also we're going to give him an opportunity to show that he either fits or he could play well enough to where we can get some type of value for him if we do need to move on. I think this is smart by the Panthers, honestly.
Okay.
And I think for Bryce Young, instead of saying like, hey, this is yours, sometimes that, like, you know, week-to-week contract, that month-to-month contract, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but I've been in a situation with a job where, like, I'm on a month-to-month contract deal, you know, and essentially waiting out what's going to happen. I'm either going to extend here or I'm going to go to another job. And sometimes that month-to-month situation gives you a lot of clarity. It puts things in perspective for you as a performer, because what me and you are doing right now is part of a performance as well, right?
Yeah.
We have to make sure we're bringing our best. Bryce Young is a performer at the end of the day, and he's got basically a week-to-week contract at this point. And so it could bring out the best in him. Hey, I did pretty well the last couple of weeks. I know that a loss doesn't necessarily hinder me, but I better not lose them the game. I better look good while doing it. You know, I think this could be positive for both sides, that it's not handed to him, because everything's been handed to him.
Something I'm excited
about.
Not in a negative
way for all the people in the comments.
Yeah.
Stop.
No, I
already know what y'all gonna say.
I know what you're saying. But something I'm excited about going forward, at least starting this weekend, is we're actually going to start to see the pieces that Dave Canales and Dan Morgan's put together this offseason.
It's all coming together.
Like actually starting to see it actually more come together.
Yeah.
Now, again, because Jonathan Brooks is coming in, Adam Thielen's returning. Now I understand that Deontay Johnson's no longer here. Jonathan Mingo no longer here, which, by the way, those guys have a combined 1 catch since they've been traded. 1 catch. They had 0 this past Sunday, just like every other Panthers wide receiver. Go figure. But nonetheless, Jonathan Brooks coming into the mix. Obviously, no Austin Corbett, but Thielen coming back. You didn't know what you had at Jalen Coker at that point. We're seeing the emergence of JT Sanders and Xavier Legette. We're actually starting to see pieces come together. And even defensively, DJ Wanham coming back, Josie Jewell coming in. I know Derrick Brown and Shaq Thompson, those guys are gone, but we're actually starting to see as a resemblance of what this team was supposed to look like.
Yes.
I'm excited to see what Jonathan Brooks and Chuba Hubbard do as a tandem in the backfield.
Yeah.
The prospect of that, I was like, you know what? Those guys could have a combined like 35 touches between the two of them this Sunday. Seriously. It might be like 23 for Chuba and like 12 for Jonathan Brooks in terms of both running and catching passes. I'm excited about that possibility. I'm excited to see Legette, Coker, and Thielen all on the field together. That's a pretty solid 3 receiving core, if you ask me, along with JT Sanders as your tight end. I'm excited about what this team is starting to put together and what these future pieces are looking like.
Same, and this is a good game to really start that. And we talked about this. I slightly mentioned it earlier. I've mentioned this extensively in another podcast where the Panthers, the last 2 games they won, lost the time of possession battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling
Which
you this.
is just as much a defensive stat as it is an offensive one, by the way.
I'm
Get
telling
off the
you,
field on 3rd down.
I'm telling you this. Patrick Mahomes and the 2-time Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs, are not the team that you want to have the ball 35 minutes to your 25.
Nope,
I'm sorry. Because like, yes, they lost 1 game so far. But like, at the end of the day, it was due. Not everybody is going to go undefeated. This isn't 72 anymore. There's 17 games. You know what I'm saying? It's the Bills, right? It's a team that could absolutely win the Super Bowl this year. This is the team where, like, we've seen on different occasions, you are down and then you score to go up on the Chiefs. And, oh, man, I left Patrick Mahomes 45 seconds on the clock. And Patrick Mahomes goes straight down the field and they win. And what you just did is all null and void because you left too much time on the clock, right? You want to make sure that you keep the ball out of his hands as much as possible. How do you do that? Help establish that freaking run.
Yeah.
And so this game, we've talked a lot about Bryce Young, but personally, you know who I'm really looking at to step up their game?
Who's that?
Dave Canales.
Yep. Yo, Dave. Okay.
Because
all right,
if Andy Reid wins this, right, he'll be the 3rd coach all time to have 19 seasons of 10 or more wins, right? He's going to get there. It's just a matter if he gets there this week or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a hell of a stat. Don Shula, Bill Belichick, those are the other 2. And then, of course, if Andy Reid sticks around, he's more than likely going to break that. You're going to up against a legit coach and a legit coaching staff. And you can't just get away with coaching gaffes on your side and just hope that the other coach messes up. Because, like, Brian Daboll kind of messed up a little bit. Dennis Allen messed up, lost his job, you know. So, like, now this is Andy Reid on the other side. Like, you can't get too cute with these things.
No.
Use Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks the way that you're going to need to use them, and make sure that, the other calls are dialed up to kind of catch them off guard and all that. Like, still stick with your offense, but make sure you're running the ball, and the guys up front, block for these guys so they can get some holes and run down the field. Because I'm telling you what, more than just Patrick Mahomes, you have a great football coach, one of the best ever on that other side, who, even if Patrick Mahomes is playing horribly, if Isaiah Pacheco comes back or not, we don't know. If, if Travis Kelce drops all passes that are sent to him, doesn't matter. That coach can do the little things to outcoach you to get that win. And so you're going to have to bring your best today, or not today, Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I bring it today too. Bring it today too. Which, by the way, Robert Hunt versus Chris Jones. Those two going one-on-one up against each other.
Love it.
That's going to be
Big meaty men slapping meat.
Just
shout outs to Big E.
meat. Just a lot of meat slapping each other. Pause. But hey, you know what? It's a good test for these guys. You've had 2 weeks to prepare for it. We'll see how you come out in terms of a game plan. And I hope that Dave Canales doesn't freak out and abandon the run game if the Chiefs take like a 10-0 lead. It's the end of the first quarter. Don't abandon that run game, man. Stick with it.
Something that came up on, I don't know if you saw the clip that kind of circulated on social media this past week.
Mm-hmm.
The last time the Panthers played the Chiefs, it was during the COVID season, 2020.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater, and the Panthers lost that by 2 points.
Yeah.
And I just remember looking at some of those highlights and like, bro, Teddy Bridgewater was good, man. Like, he was dealing. That man was accurate. He was throwing the ball. Like, why on earth did that man who brought all those concerts to Charlotte think that he could also take away a quarterback and say, like, bro, in the same year, essentially, you said, we have a year left of Cam Newton. Throw him away. We got a year. We signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year deal. We saw a year of him, and it was okay. Throw him away. We're just going to trade away all of these draft picks and Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Brian Burns and all that, and let's see what we could get back for it. And here we are. Bro, if you just would have been patient with Mr. Bridgewater, who just won a freaking playoff game in high school, 69-0. Nice.
Things
are different. But hey, that's me living in the past.
It's funny that we started off this podcast talking about potential future quarterback when this team has given up 11 draft picks and DJ Moore to figure out that position in the last 3 years.
DJ Moore might want to get back to Charlotte, though.
There's also that, too. But hey, you know what? We're going to be in Charlotte this Sunday.
You don't look too happy.
Yeah, well, that's fair. We're going to be in Charlotte this Sunday. Maybe Taylor Swift will show up, Chris. Maybe we can have her on.
Yeah, it'll be good to catch up with Taylor. You know what I'm saying?
Say,
hey, Taylor, welcome to Charlotte. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome to Charlotte.
You know
too bad David Tepper couldn't get you here for a concert, but, I'm glad Travis Kelce was able to get you here.
Yeah. What do you need from Cookout? We're going to head to Cookout.
We got you, man. You want some Bojangles?
You got some?
We got milkshakes. We're going to get you some Bojangles. We get some Krispy Kreme. You want some Texas Pete hot sauce?
That's what people say.
We'll see you guys on Sunday. Remember, Carolina 4 Dealers, your sponsor here of Pause. My God. Carolina 4 Dealers, your sponsor of Panthers Playbook. For Ford F-150 on your team. See your Carolina 4 dealer today. Chris is already out. We out.